The meeting to order. This is meeting number 14 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on International Trade. Today's meeting is taking place in a hybrid format pursuant to November 25th House Order. For the Director of the Board of Internal Economy on March 10, 2022, all those attending the meeting in person must wear a mask, except for members who are at their place during proceedings. I need to make a few comments for the benefit of the witnesses and members. Please wait till I recognize you by name before speaking. For those participating by video conference, click on your microphone icon to activate your mic, and please mute yourself when you're not speaking. For those participating via Zoom, you have interpretation options at the bottom of your screen of either Floor, English, or French. Okay, so pursuant to the Standing Order 102 and the motion adopted by the committee on March 21st, the committee is beginning its study on trade opportunities for Canadian businesses in the Indo-Pacific. We have with us by video conference today from the Department of Foreign Affairs, Trade and Development, Erin Alexander, Associate Assistant Deputy Minister, Trade Policy and Negotiations, Jay Allen, Director General, Trade Negotiation, Weldon Epp, Director General, North Asia, Stephen Goodinson, Director General, Trade Commissioner, Service Operations, Emmanuel Kamarikakis, Director General, Investment and Innovation, and Peter Lundy, Director General, Southeast Asia and Oceania. Welcome to you all. Thank you for taking the time to come here before the committee today. We will start with opening remarks. Mr. Alexander, I invite you to make opening remarks of 5 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Honourable members. As the Chair said, my name is Erin Alexander, and I'm the Associate Deputy Minister for Trade Policy and Negotiations at Global Affairs Canada, and also the Chief Negotiator for the Canada-Indonesia CEPA negotiations. It is indeed a pleasure to appear before you today. Now and in the coming years, the prosperity, security, and well-being of Canadians will be increasingly linked to economic, social, and political developments in the Indo-Pacific region. The global economic center of gravity is shifting in that direction, and decisions made there will increasingly affect Canada's place in the world. But it is also a region where the rules-based international order is under pressure. Upholding and expanding support for international rules has become all the more important in the context of growing challenges to sovereignty, democracy, and human rights, as we have all seen with the ongoing crisis in the Ukraine. Maintaining open, transparent, and rules-based trade is critical to Canada's national interests, prosperity, and values, and will be key, especially in the Indo-Pacific region. The Indo-Pacific presents Canada and Canadian businesses with many opportunities, but also some challenges. In parts of the region, economic nationalism and protectionism have intensified during the pandemic. COVID-19 has also exposed vulnerabilities in the complex global supply chains that flow through that region. And of course, the reality of China's market heft, growing influence, and deep economic integration with the region cannot be ignored. For Canadian businesses, the Indo-Pacific is a relatively distant market where competition can be fierce. Doing business in the region is further complicated by market, non-market, cultural, and linguistic barriers that Canadians do not face when trading closer to home. But the opportunities and rewards are also immense. The region is developing rapidly. There are markets for Canadian raw materials, agriculture and agri-food products, manufactured goods, and services. The region accounts for over half of the global population, and by 2030 is expected to account for 2/3 of the global middle class. Against this backdrop, Canada is developing a new approach to the Indo-Pacific aimed at intensifying and diversifying our engagement in the region. This work aligns directly with the Prime Minister's mandate to the Minister of Foreign Affairs to develop and launch a comprehensive Indo-Pacific strategy, the adoption and release of which is undergoing consideration by the government. Building on our existing people-to-people, trade, and investment ties, Canada will be seeking to deepen our engagement in the region, including on the economic front. This will support the government's trade diversification strategy and promote more resilient global supply chains. Our existing FTAs and new FTA initiatives in the region will be critical to this approach. Canada already has significant trade agreements in the region with the Canada-Korea FTA and the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, or the CPTPP. Canada also has 5 foreign investment promotion and protection agreements in force with Indo-Pacific economies, namely China, Hong Kong, Mongolia, the Philippines, and Thailand. We also have a strong trade commissioner presence in the region to help Canadian businesses benefit from these agreements. There are 373 trade commissioners in 49 locations in the Indo-Pacific region, representing 39% of all TCS resources outside of Canada. The Trade Commissioner Service also has 5 Canadian Technology Accelerators and 2 Global Mentor programs in the region. But Canada has an opportunity to build on this foundation. To this end, Canada has launched trade negotiations with ASEAN and Indonesia, resumed negotiations with India, is exploring new FIPAs, including with Taiwan, and is looking to expand membership in the CPTPP. These initiatives will lay the foundation for greater economic engagement in the Indo-Pacific region. I'm joined here today by Jay Allen, Director General Trade Negotiations, Weldon Epp, Director General North Asia, Peter Lundy, Director General Southeast Asia and Oceania, Emmanuel Cameronakis, Director General Investment, Innovation and Education, and Stephen Goodinson, Director General Trade Commissioner, Service Operations. Colleagues and I look forward to your questions and discussing Canada's initiatives in the region with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Alexander. Sounds like everybody's very busy. So thank you very much. On to Mr. Hoback for 6 minutes, please.
Well, thank you, Chair, and thank you, gentlemen, for being here this afternoon to give us kind of an overview of what we should be looking at in regards to these negotiations and what to maybe expect or, some of the hurdles or concerns that we may have. And I guess my first question would be, by sector, what are the largest gains expected in these agreements? So which sectors do you think are going to be the big winners? Which are the ones that may not like it as much? Have you had a chance to do any analysis on that?
Thank you very much, member, for your question. Madam Chair, we have done analysis on the sectors that are likely to gain from an agreement. I will speak to Indonesia, but then I might turn to Mr. Allen to speak about the agreements that he's responsible for. With respect to Indonesia, we estimate that a CEPA with Indonesia could raise Canada's exports to Indonesia by about $447 million by 2040. A wide range of sectors are expected to benefit from an agreement, including business services, machinery and equipment, agri-food, chemical products, computer and electronic products, and transport. There's also the potential for increasing trade in areas that are not currently exported to, in sectors that are not currently exporting to Indonesia, including clothing and textiles, seafood, motor vehicles and parts, and metal products. So we see great potential for increasing trade between Canada and Indonesia with a CEPA. And perhaps I'll ask Mr. Allen to speak to the other agreements.
Thank you, Arun. Madam Chair, Canadians tend to export the same sorts of things. We tend to export a lot of raw materials. We export a lot of agricultural and agri-food products, and we increasingly are exporting more and more manufactured products. So as Mr. Alexander said, the same sort of benefits that we would see in Indonesia are essentially the same ones that we would expect to see when it comes to ASEAN and India. All of this entire region has significant tariffs, and as those tariffs come down, we will be able to export more and more different types of products. But right now, certainly we're looking at, in the India context, we're looking at gains with respect to pulses. We want to clear up some market access barriers on pulses. We certainly want to export more with respect to manufactured goods. Clean tech is a big one for us throughout the region. And similarly in ASEAN, we would expect that we would see significant gains when it comes to agricultural products, pork, beef, grains, and oilseeds, but also in the clean tech fields, in the advanced manufacturing fields. So largely similar across the board, because those are the interests that Canadians have.
And what areas do you think would be sensitive to Canada? What sectors would be maybe feel a little threatened or need some concern?
Thank you very much for the question, Honourable Member. Madam Chair, in our consultations with Canadians, the sectors that raised some concerns were particularly clothing and textiles and some leather products. They raised concerns about increased competition from sectors in Indonesia and in the Asia-Pacific region. Jay, do you want to add anything to that?
Sure. I think we always see sensitivities with respect to our supply managed products, although the government has been very clear that we will not allow new market access for those products. In the case of India, there's certainly sensitivities with respect to ensuring that we have reciprocal market access. So they don't want us to open our doors to a flood of manufactured products if we're not getting the same sort of access. In the ASEAN context, really the sectors that Mr. Alexander highlighted, textiles and apparel and leather goods seem to be at the forefront.
And where do you see synergies in Canadian businesses and businesses in those countries, in those regions, actually developing partnerships and exporting around the world? Do you see much of that as a possibility, or?
Thank you, Ms. Honorable Member, for the question. Madam Chair, we do see that opportunity. We see that this is a growing region. It's growing both economically and by population. It'll become the center for global supply chains in a variety of sectors. And we see the opportunity and the potential for Canadian companies to integrate into those sectors and to serve global supply chains through their contacts and establishment in the Indo-Pacific region. Thank you.
Who are our competitors? Who's in there? Australians, Americans? Who else is knocking on the door?
I think the answer is exactly what you said. It is a very fiercely competitive region. It's a fast growth area, like I said. There's great potential there. And so all our regular competitors, including the Australians, including the US, including the Europeans, are also looking to enter into the market and establish themselves there. And some of them are also negotiating free trade agreements and economic agreements with members of the Asia Pacific region.
And in our agreement, how are we going to differentiate ourselves from them? How are we going to find an advantage that's truly Canadian?
Thank you very much for the question. I think the Canadian advantage is the quality of our products. We make very, very high quality agricultural products, everything from grains to meat. Our services sector is very, very competitive. And our other sectors, including things like mining and minerals, we produce the products that countries need. And so I think we can be competitive against the United States, Australia, and the other major countries in the region.
And just a quick question, first mover advantage, do we have it?
I would say that we're right on the precipice. I think other countries are turning their attention to this region as well, just like we are. And so there is the opportunity for us to have first mover advantage. And as we know in earlier agreements like CPTPP, that is a definite advantage where we established ourselves in markets before our competitors could enter.
Okay, terrific. Okay, Mr. Varani for 6 minutes, please.
Great, thank you very much, Chair. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, perfect. So thank you to the officials. It's nice to see some familiar faces. Thank you for your comments, Mr. Alexander and Mr. Allen. I guess some pointed questions that build on what some of what Mr. Hoback was raising. I personally have had some meetings with respect to, for example, if we zone in on a particular industry, agriculture, where I've had beef farmers here from Canada explaining about some of the access they would like in Asian markets. But I'm wondering if you could tell me about the prospects, for example, of beef being sold in Asia, particularly in Indonesia, where they have significant requirements for halal meat. And is there some learning that needs to occur on the Canadian side about how to meet those expectations in a predominantly Muslim nation that is very sizable, upwards of 250 million people? So if you could address that one for me. So I'll direct that to Mr. Alexander, since you are a lead negotiator with Indonesia. And congratulations for that role.
Thank you very much for the question, Honourable Member. Madam Chair, yes, access for Canadian beef to Indonesia has been an issue of significant concern, and the halal issue is one of the key barriers to entry. We have raised this bilaterally with Indonesia, including by Minister Ang. We've raised this multilaterally at the WTO, and we're raising it during our CEPA negotiations. I raised it myself with my counterpart. I think part of the process is that there was a change of ministries responsible for halal certification in Indonesia in 2016, 2017. And so they've been slow to certify new bodies and, very, very slow. It's 2022 now. So we're putting significant resources and activity into ensuring that Canadian halal producers regain full access to the Indonesian market. It is a key priority for us, and we will work very hard. And we have made this clear to the Indonesians, from the minister to myself, to the ambassador in Indonesia as well.
And on the agriculture side, this is open to you or Mr. Allen or anyone else, but when we're dealing with the conflict in Ukraine and we're dealing with very troubling concerns about both the ability of East Europeans to feed themselves and in the case of Ukraine, to feed other parts of the world, is that level of global food insecurity, do you feel that in terms of our Asian partners that we're either working on agreements with or seeking to enter into agreements on? Because we talked about pulses, we can talk about beef, etc. Are nations seeing what's happening in Europe, clamoring for other sources of quality products, but also products that can be delivered and delivered on time through agricultural exporting? So does that make us more attractive to the Asian markets given the sense of global food insecurity?
Thank you very much for the question, Honourable Member. Madam Chair, I think that countries are realizing through the global security, food insecurity that's arisen out of the Ukraine crisis, that it's important to diversify suppliers and have reliable suppliers. And I think that really creates an opportunity for Canada because our products are not only some of the highest quality agriculture products in the world, but we are a reliable supplier and we will live up to our commitments to supply goods. And so keeping the free trade open is a key priority for Canada. And I think Asian countries will see this as an advantage in dealing with Canada.
Okay. And could I ask you with respect to sort of on the clean tech side, obviously this is a flagship sort of issue for our government in terms of trying to promote environmental sustainability domestically, but also abroad. Where do you see sort of, if you could sort of create a hierarchy among the ASEAN nations, there's many members of ASEAN, but are there certain sectors or nations that are more interested in clean tech and in sort of addressing that environmental agenda than others? Like, can you sort of give us a sense of how you would prioritize clean tech in terms of who it is most attractive to amongst the ASEAN members?
Thank you very much for the question, Honourable Member. Perhaps I can speak to Indonesia and I'll turn to Mr. Allen to speak about the other countries. Indonesia still uses a lot of hydrocarbons in the production of electricity, especially coal, oil, and natural gas. And so I think being an island nation, there is also great potential and located in the tropics for renewable energy sources. And so I think there will be a great interest in the clean tech sector for Indonesia. Being an island nation, they're also vulnerable to climate change and realize that they need to reduce their GHG emissions to fight climate change. And so great potential for Canadian industries in the clean tech sector in Indonesia. Maybe I'll turn to Mr. Allen to speak to the other countries.
Thank you. With respect to ASEAN, one of the ones that clearly stands out is Vietnam. They have a very clear a government process, a government policy in terms of greening their cities and advancing their smart cities. And so we think that there's a tremendous market for clean tech there. Obviously, across the region, there are opportunities. This is a rapidly growing region. They're rapidly modernizing. They're rapidly urbanizing. And so all of that leads to more pressure on the environment, whether it's in terms of managing waste, whether it's in terms of providing clean drinking water, noise abatement. All those sorts of issues all fall within the clean tech sector. And so those are opportunities for us across the region. And similarly in India, we've got a lot of opportunities to partner with Indian companies, especially in terms of developing the technologies, broadening their application in the country. The opportunities are vast.
Okay, and with respect to India, I think all signs with respect to that early progress agreement between Minister Goyal and Minister Ng, I mean, that was a terrific development. So kudos to the departmental teams that have been working on that for some time and addressing the fumigation issue, which I know has been an irritant for some time. But those are important initiatives. Madam Chair, how much time do I have?
13 seconds, so I don't think you have any more time left.
Okay, well, I'll just say thank you very much, and we look forward to working with you and also assisting you in that work as a committee. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Varani. Yeah, on to Mr. Savard Tremblay for 6 minutes, please.
Excusez-moi.
Hello, and thank you for being here, and thank you for your testimony. I have here the strategy document, the Indo-Pacific strategy for the government of Quebec. It's called Carte sur la relance, des options pour le Québec. The first point of interest, when we look at the end of the document, is the green economy and sustainable development. It talks about Quebec's commitments for the green economy through the promotion of Quebec knowledge with regards to green economy and tourism for people in the Indo-Pacific region. I heard the colleague asked by my parliamentary secretary asking what regions were more open. Have you had discussions with official representatives of the government of Quebec in order to coordinate Canadian and Quebec strategies?
Thank you very much for the question, Honourable Member. Madam Chair, we consult regularly with the provinces, all provinces, including Quebec, on our negotiation strategy. We take input from them. We have regular meetings, and after negotiating rounds, we do have debriefing sessions with provinces where we discuss issues that were raised. I myself did one immediately after the first round of negotiations with Indonesia and had a very constructive dialogue with all the provinces, including Quebec. Maybe Mr. Allen, I'll ask you to speak to any other negotiations.
Yeah, we take the same approach and have had regular contact with the government of Quebec, including on this issue.
Excellent. Je vous remercie pour cette réponse.
Excellent. Thank you for your answer. A more specific question on the issue of Indonesia. There's a production in Indonesia that creates issues for Environment Group. This is palm oil, and we fear that this will result in more deforestation for palm oil production. Have you looked on this issue, and are you going to, during future discussion, require ethical criteria for this?
Thank you very much for your question, Honourable Member. Madam Chair, we have looked at the palm oil issue. We think it is a very important issue. We want to ensure that trade and economic development goes hand in hand with environment. And so we've made it a priority to emphasize during our discussions with the Indonesians, and I would note that we are only after round one, but the importance of environmental stewardship. Our objective is to seek out strong and enforceable obligations in an environment chapter that will promote the sustainable use of forestry and the sustainable use of land. And so it is a key priority for our government in our negotiations, for the government in our negotiations with Indonesia. Thank you.
Cependant, on sait que depuis...
Also, since 2007, palm oil imports in Canada have gone up 400%. So we can expect that an eventual agreement will even increase further these importations. Are you not afraid that deforestation will be a natural consequence if we open the door to palm oil imports here in Canada?
Thank you very much for that question. I would note that palm oil imports to Canada are relatively low. In 2021, we imported approximately $43 million worth of palm oil from Indonesia. And we think that working with Indonesia in a collaborative and cooperative manner on forestry stewardship and sustainable forestry practices will help Indonesia manage its ecosystem and its plantations for palm oil products in a manner that is responsible and sustainable. And that would be our goal through an agreement.
Donc, j'en comprends donc que pour vous, pour...
So if I understand correctly, for the negotiating team for Canada, there will be a minimum, a necessary minimum for criteria as to what will make an eventual agreement acceptable.
Thank you very much for that question. Yes, we have negotiating objectives that we have presented before Parliament. We are looking and seeking to have an enforceable environment chapter with high standard obligations and also a collaborative element in that chapter to work together with Indonesia to promote responsible environmental stewardship.
Je vous remercie pour cette précision. Je suis heureux.
Thank you. I'm very pleased to find out that this is part of the considerations, and we will follow this with great interest. So right now, if I understand correctly, there is negotiation with the region in order to reach an agreement with the region, but there's also bilateral negotiations with Indonesia at the same time. Is this right?
Yes, that's correct. There's bilateral negotiations with Indonesia and negotiations with ASEAN as a region.
Je vous remercie. Je n'ai plus de questions.
Thank you. Those are all my questions for now.
Thank you very much. Mr. Massey, for 6 minutes, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for our guests to be here. One of the things I'd like to start on is for arms manufacturing, small or medium or larger, are there any discussions in terms of that as trade, and which companies are being focused on?
Well, thank you very much for the question, Honorable Member. Madam Chair, we are still very early in the negotiations, so we haven't got into specific product categories like arms. We're discussing goods in general, and we are consulting with Canadian companies, but we haven't reached that stage where we're discussing specific product categories. Maybe Jay, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, we're in the same situation. It's round one with India, and we haven't had a first round yet with ASEAN.
So you're starting the negotiations without even an idea of what types of products or services would be a priority. So you're not including, say, for example, auto or parts manufacturing or agriculture.
No, well, thank you for the question, Honorable Member. Yes, we do know which areas are the priority, and I think I mentioned them earlier, but they're business services, machinery and equipment, agri-food, chemical products, computer, electronic products, and potential for clothing and textiles, seafood, motor vehicles and parts, and metal products. But we haven't started going through line by line yet on product-specific sectors in our negotiations. We're still in the early phases.
So what would be the timing for arms manufacturing in terms of discussion? It seemed it would be its own line item, since we do have small arms and other arms manufacturing in Canada. When would that be engaged if it's not now? It seemed to be a general category similar to other ones, and it's a very unique one, obviously, that has sensitivities. So when does that come into play? Is it added on later on? Yes, sorry, go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Madam Chair, the discussions are still in an early stage. We're still in round one, which is a kind of an explanation of each of our approaches to the various chapters. As we move along in the negotiations will become more specific, and we'll deal more specifically with sectors and specific sectors. And so at that time, I can't tell you exactly when we'll start doing that. It'll depend on the willingness of our partners in Indonesia and other countries as well. But we will move to those in a timely manner.
So, for example, Indonesia, what have they presented back to us as a priority? They must have presented some topics back to us, and I'm just a little bit surprised that arms manufacturing would not have actually come up between either country's discussions, since it is a very much an attractive trade element. And there's some of these countries that we're dealing with here that have some sensitivities related to that, and opening the door for trade that could include that without any terms and conditions is something I'm concerned about.
So thank you very much for your question. We haven't opened the door to any trade without terms and conditions. Like I said, we're still at a very high level in our negotiations. We're still in round one. Indonesia's indicated interest in certain sectors, especially clothing, leather, textiles, agriculture and agri-food products for export to Canada, motor vehicle parts as well. But we're still in a very early stage in the negotiations. And as the negotiations progress, we will get more into each of the sectors.
So when, say, for example, arms manufacturing comes up, does that trigger any other review from CSIS or from our military or from any other, agency that the government get some types of intelligence on? Is that going to take place? And how does that take place in the process?
Thank you very much for your question. I'm not an expert on arms exports, I must say, but we do have an export permit system in Canada. And so the export of arms to countries will be looked at on a case-by-case basis. And the Ministry of Foreign Affairs provides permits for the export of arms and armaments to countries. And so they would be looked at by various agencies and organizations in Canada before they are exported.
Okay, the reason I'm asking this is a number of years ago, Canada with Indonesia actually led a mission for procurement of arms and military during the time that East Timor was actually invaded. So this is something that there is quite a bit of history in the past. And so I guess what I'm looking for is the comfort to know, as not only just the committee, but also the government, when this actually starts to take place. I guess I thought it would be a little bit different in terms of the process, because it's quite, difficult, even for auto manufacturing and the politics around some of those and production for environmental and labor issues, but also military equipment and manufacturing and exchanges also becomes even highly complicated.
Well, thank you very much for the question and the comment. All I can say is that we have a very rigorous arms export permit system, and that would be applied to Indonesia and other countries as appropriate.
Okay, if I could just, Madam Chair, maybe we can get some help from the researchers
Okay, but
to the process for this.
I'm sorry, maybe you better
some
repeat
point.
that. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, no, sorry, I'm finishing I just wonder if we could maybe get a little bit of a process from our researchers in terms of how Canada engages in arms manufacturing trade during these type of general agreements to start with.
Thank you, Mr. Massey. On to Mr. Baldinelli for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the witnesses for being here and their presentation. Just after reviewing the briefing material that was presented, I'd just like to ask the question to our guests, like, what are the key differences we hope to achieve in the ASEAN talks versus those bilateral talks we'll be holding with Indonesia?
Well, thank you very much for your question, Honourable Member. Madam Chair, perhaps I'll begin and then I'll turn to Mr. Allen as well. I think our overall goal is the same for both agreements, to increase access to key growing markets for Canadian businesses with respect to trade, services, and investment, and also to promote environmental stewardship and good labor practices and inclusive trade. For Indonesia, it is the largest economy in the ASEAN and is probably one of the more developed economies. And so we see the potential to conclude an agreement with Indonesia faster than we could with ASEAN as a whole. And so we're putting some priority on doing that because we see that there's great opportunities for Canadian companies and Canadian businesses in Indonesia with its huge population and its very growing and vibrant economy. So our priority is to close an agreement with Indonesia in a timely manner, and perhaps with ASEAN, with its varied membership and varied levels of economic development, it might take a little longer, but we want to create opportunities for Canadian businesses as quickly as possible. Thank you. Jay, do you want to add anything?
Sure. With respect to ASEAN, what we're looking to get out of it and where it differs slightly, as Mr. Alexander said, is it will likely take us longer, given the differences in terms of level of development and the fact that we're dealing with 10 partners. So Indonesia will likely come sooner, and because it's one partner that is relatively well advanced and developed, we're likely to get a higher level of commitment. But in terms of ASEAN, it holds a number of benefits for us. First, it gives us an agreement that spans the region. So it gives us market access to all kinds of, to 10 different countries, 4 of which are already CPTPP partners, with 2 of them having ratified the agreement. But it would give us access to that, and it would also allow us to integrate more into the regional supply chains, because we would have a common set of rules of origin that would allow us to what's called cumulate. So use product from throughout the region in our own manufactured products and sell into it. The other main advantage or the main goal of ASEAN, aside from just the market access, is there's a strategic value to doing an FTA with ASEAN. ASEAN plays a very key role in terms of not only the economy, but also the security relationship in Asia. Deepening our engagement there, deepening our relationship there will help us on a strategic front, both in terms of supply chains, our political relationships. All those sorts of things come from helping or from having an FTA. So it helps on a number of fronts.
Thank you, Mr. Allen and Mr. Alexander. And to your point in your responses, it seems like the higher priority of the 2 agreements would be that with Asian nations. But you're indicating that it seems that an agreement with Indonesia would be easier to accomplish in the shorter term. So my question there is, so can you confirm, so the agreement would be considered the priority is the ASEAN agreement?
Sorry, I'm not sure I understood your question. I guess
of the 2
both are priority.
Of the 2 priorities, what is higher for Canada?
I would say that both are priorities for Canada. I think it's just that we're more likely to conclude the Indonesian agreement before the ASEAN agreement, Madam Chair. And so we're both working very hard to conclude agreements, but just given the context and the membership of ASEAN, it is more likely that the Indonesian agreement would come first.
Thank you, Mr.
conclusion.
Alexander. Quickly, you had mentioned about environmental practices and labor practices as well. So will labor standards make their way into these agreements? Will that be a position that the Canadian government will be forwarding?
Madam Chair, the government intends to put forward strong labor standards in these agreements. We're seeking strong commitments with respect to collective bargaining, freedom of association, non-discrimination, and we're looking to have an enforceable agreement on those aspects. As well, we'll also look to have collaborative elements where we can work together to improve labor standards in Asian countries and work with Canada to improve standards, as we've done with Mexico under the CUSMA. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. 5 seconds.
Just quickly, I was wondering about consultation process and how does the department work to keep stakeholders updated and involved?
Thank you for the question. We meet regularly with stakeholders after each round of negotiations, sometimes after each day, depending on the level of discussions. We meet with provinces each day after a round of negotiations. With private sector and stakeholders, we meet after each round of negotiations, but we also have continual contact with them in between rounds to hear from them on their key priorities and their areas of concerns. So there's continual engagement with stakeholders.
Okay, thank you very much. On to Mr. Miao, please, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the official joining us today. A Canada-ASEAN Free Trade Agreement will boost Canada's GDP by $1.2 billion by 2027. With much of the benefit coming from higher wages and improved terms of trade. And also by 2027, the bilateral trade impact of a free trade agreement would be in the range of $4.8 billion to $10.9 billion. And here's my questions. How do nations like Singapore and Indonesia contribute to this projected boost to Canada's GDP?
Perhaps I'll ask Mr. Allen to respond to that question.
Sure. Madam Chair, countries like Singapore and I apologize, I missed the second country that was listed.
Indonesia.
So countries like Singapore and Indonesia obviously offer relatively well-developed markets, and with Singapore we already have an FTA agreement, but even on top of that, there's a projected gain as a result of having an ASEAN FTA. As Mr. Alexander's explained, Indonesia simply offers a massive potential market. It is a booming market. It is a growing middle class. It's a massive population, and so it offers us the opportunity to sell them a lot of stuff.
And to follow with that question, how has industry been consulted, or which emerging industry should be focused regarding a potential free trade agreement with Asian nations?
Well, Madam Chair, as I was stating earlier, we engage in consultations with industry on a continual basis, and especially after each round of negotiations. We listen to them to understand their needs, their priorities, and their concerns. We also had a very open Canada Gazette process where we received consultation submissions from a variety of stakeholders in industry. And this is all taken into account as we develop our processes and practices for negotiations. It's a very, very important part.
And can you speak to the rate of growth in the Asian region? And are there any specific driving forces promoting this rapid growth at this moment?
Madam Chair, I don't have the GDP numbers in front of me. I'm sorry, Mr. Allen may, but I can tell you that Indonesia and the other countries in ASEAN are rapidly growing. They have growing populations. The middle class is a burgeoning sector of the economy. They'll have one of the largest middle classes, or they will have the largest middle class as a region in the world by 2050. This presents great opportunities for Canadian businesses to sell into this growing by population, but also by wealth class, and create new jobs and new opportunities for Canada. Mr. Allen, I don't know if you have anything to add, Jay.
No, not really. I think you've hit it on the head. It's really about the growth in the population. It's about the increasing urbanization. They are rapidly becoming advanced economies. So that is what's leading their growth, and that's why they've become such a manufacturing hub and why they're so important to global supply chains.
And what are the advantages would Canada have by entering into a free trade agreement ahead of other nations right now?
Madam Chair, I think this is the key advantage is that we would be first or one of the first into it. And so we can establish ourselves. I've been a trade commissioner in Asia, and I know that a lot of trade between countries is based on relationships, and Canada would be there first to establish relationships and establish themselves in the market. So being there first is important, being there early is important, and we're working very hard to ensure that the Canadian businesses have access to these markets in a timely manner. Thank you.
Okay. So, and what other opportunities do countries like Vietnam, the Philippines, Indonesia, and Singapore present for Canadian industries? And how would those opportunities benefit Canadians and Canada's GDP?
Well, Madam Chair, all these countries are rapidly growing, and they have a growing population and a growing economy. This creates opportunities for exporting products to these countries, which will create jobs in Canada. There also potential for exporting services, and services is a fast-growing sector in these economies. And Canada has excellent services, especially in areas like IT, environmental services, which will be open in these markets. And finally, there's the potential for increased Canadian investment in these markets, which will create wealth both in those countries, but also for Canada. So really great potential in these countries for growing the Canadian economy and growing their own economies. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
Monsieur Savard-Tremblay, for 2.5 minutes, please.
Oui, je vous remercie.
Thank you. As we know, this committee did a study on the investor-state dispute resolutions. But as we know with CUSMA, this put an end to this type of mechanism. And so we did a study here. And so is Canada proposing to maintain this type of mechanism for resolution of disputes?
Thank you very much for your question, Honourable Member. Maybe I'll turn to Mr. Allen to speak on this. Jay?
Sure. Madam Chair, the government remains committed to helping investors and Canadian investors protect their interests overseas. There are a number of ways that we can do that. Negotiating FTAs, free trade agreements, and foreign investment protection agreements help to provide transparency and predictability that our investors need. And traditionally, we've sought to include provisions that allow investors to defend their own interests, and that's largely been handled by way of investor-state dispute settlement. Our approach to including investor-state dispute settlement in our agreements is flexible, and it will largely depend on the partner that we're dealing with.
Donc, j'en comprends finalement.
So if I understand correctly, in this agreement with several different countries, there could be some regimes for investor-state dispute settlement that would be different with different countries, between Canada and India, for example, Canada and Malaysia, Canada and Indonesia, as an example. So there could be some different regimes for this.
Indeed. So with respect to India, we are looking at investor protection outside of the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement. We're looking at negotiating a foreign investment protection agreement with India. The Canadian proposal has investor-state dispute settlement in it. With respect to ASEAN, we are expecting to negotiate an agreement that includes investment protections within the scope of it. And the Canadian proposal, which has not yet been tabled because we have not yet had our first round of negotiations, one would expect that it would include investor-state dispute settlement. We already have investor-state dispute settlement with Singapore and Vietnam, who are partners with us in the CPTPP context, and Malaysia and Brunei have agreed to it in the CPTPP context, but they have yet to ratify the agreement.
Thank you very much. Mr. Massey for 2.5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And to Mr. Alexander, again, I know that you may not be able to provide full specifics, but I am on certain topics interested in, and obviously that's why we even engage in the trade talks. Pharmaceutical industry, for example, in India. What has been kind of talk there? I know generics are an issue, but they also have new industries. India in 2020 started producing for the first time medical cannabis. And obviously we've changed recently over the last number of years. Have those types of discussions taken place with regards to pharmaceuticals?
Oh, thank you for the question, Honourable Member. Madam Chair, I'll turn to Mr. Allen, who's responsible for the Indian negotiations, to respond. Jay?
Yeah, so Madam Chair, with respect to India, we have had discussions. They're really at the initial stages. We, in fact, just this morning wrapped up our first round of negotiations with India. So the subject has been raised. India is obviously a major world producer of both pharmaceuticals and pharmaceutical ingredients. So they have a big interest in exporting this to us.
Okay. And when I guess, would it be advantageous for committee members, and I guess the lobbying will start on us. When in time frame do you think there will be more kind of an inventory of what's really a priority on the table? Will we get a briefing on that, or when, because that's what's going to happen. I can tell you, I've been around enough that it's going to start to happen. So that's part of our questioning today. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, the witnesses.
Madam Chair, if I may answer the question.
Go ahead.
The timing, as Mr. Arun was saying, is really dependent on the course of the negotiations. We expect that an early progress trade agreement with India could take a matter of months, as opposed to potentially a couple of years, to negotiate a comprehensive agreement. So it could come at any point in the spectrum. I expect that stakeholders will be reaching out early and often. With respect to when you'll see or when you'll get a more fulsome briefing. That's outside of my remit. I can't promise you that. My apologies.
Thank you very much, Mr. Allen. Mr. Martel for 5 minutes.
Oui. Je vous remercie.
Thank you for being here. I have a question. In my region, we are lucky that we have heavy industry such as aluminum and forestry products, dairy products, but also we have a lot of potential that's quite interesting, such as vanadium, phosphate mafic, and tantan. I'm trying to know what are the opportunities for these types of industries in countries that are under study here.
Well, thank you very much for your question. I'm sorry, I didn't hear after vanadium what minerals you were saying. I apologize.
Niobium.
Niobium, tantalum, mafic phosphate.
I'm assuming that these are critical minerals used in manufacturing. And so I would say that there's great potential for exporting these, especially as new technologies develop. And these, I assume, are minerals that are used in high-tech products. And so the supply chains of Indonesia and ASEAN are supplying the world with high-tech products. And I would see that there would be opportunities for exports of these products from Canada to the region. Jay, is there anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I think another side of it too is that when we negotiate a trade agreement, it creates opportunities for inward investment, and the production of minerals such as this, it's an expensive industry, and so looking for investment from outside the country is something that the government takes very seriously, and so an FTA with ASEAN or Indonesia or India presents an opportunity to try to attract that investment into these important industries.
Les pays de l'Indo-Pacifique, là.
So these Indo-Pacific countries are not all at the same level as we are. when we talk about good traceability for goods and services. So how, with a potential agreement with ASEAN, how can we implement an adequate traceability process?
Thank you very much for the question. Maybe I'll ask Mr. Allen to respond on ASEAN.
Madam Chair, if I could ask a question with respect to the question, can I ask for clarification on what is meant by traceability? Traceability in what sense?
The follow-up to know where merchandise or parts are from, to be able to make sure that it's not a trafficked good, for example.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. When we negotiated a free trade agreement, we put in what's called rules of origin, and these rules of origin are specific to products. And so we put in place what we call PSROs, product-specific rules of origin, to help us determine exactly what goes into a product, so that there, and also the mechanism for tracing them back, the mechanism for ensuring that they do meet the rules, because we only want goods that originate in the exporting country to benefit from the trade agreement. So on the one hand, there's that. On the other hand, there's if it's a trade in for example, a wildlife product that isn't meant to be traded, we have rules in our environment chapters that deal with that and commit countries to dealing with or to implementing their commitments under, for example, the CITES treatment, which is the trade in endangered species. So those two elements, I think, cover off what the member was asking with respect to how we go about ensuring traceability. The other angle that I would say that our trade agreements include is cooperation. So we offer our partners cooperation with respect to these sorts of things to help them implement their obligations so that they can meet the terms.
Thank you. 20 seconds, Mr. Martel.
Combien?
20 seconds.
Well, Taiwan is being bullied by China nearly every week, and we know that Taiwan produces almost 90% of microchips necessary for electronics. If Taiwan falls to the hands of China, then what kind of agreement could we have with Taiwan to send a strong message to China and to protect our supply of microchips?
Thank you for the question, Manager. I might have to turn to Mr. Epp to speak to Taiwan. I'm not a specialist on Taiwan. So Weldon?
Okay, well, Madam Chair, thank you for the question. I would just say that the honourable member is correct in pointing out the critical role that Taiwan plays in global supply chains for the high-tech industry. And in fact, Canada has a very long-standing and rich partnership with partners in Taiwan on research, on development, and on high tech. And we've seen additional investments in that area in recent years. So it's of direct concern to our economy, Taiwan being one of our largest partners, 12th overall trade partner globally, 5th in Asia. So it is of not only economic, but also national security concern to Canada. I cannot, unfortunately, respond to the hypothetical of what would we do if there were a sort of a forced resolution to longstanding historical challenges across the Taiwan Strait. But I would just simply say that it is a priority for the government of Canada to continue to encourage peaceful means to dialogue between authorities in Taiwan and on the mainland China. And we've made it very clear, and the government has spoken out recently on a number of occasions bilaterally, but also with partners to call out unprovoked and sort of unprecedented military actions in the Taiwan Strait that we think destabilize not only the region, but as you point out, as the honourable members pointed out, global supply chains in a critical area globally for everything from cars to phones in our hands. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Martel. On to Ms. Dillon for 5 minutes, please.
Merci, Madame la Présidente, et merci à vous tous d'être.
Thank you, and thank you for you all for being present. Could you provide to the committee an update on the way that the implementation of the CPTPP was completed? Thank you.
Question, honorable member. I'll turn to Mr. Allen to respond to that. Mr. Allen?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'm happy to say that last year CPTPP saw its 8th signatory. Peru ratified the agreement and became the 8th party to the agreement. So on that front, we're doing very well. There are still 3 that are left to ratify. Those are Chile, Malaysia, and Brunei. So we're working with them to support their eventual ratification. We are in the process of negotiating the United Kingdom's accession to the agreement. That's been going on for about a year now, almost a year. We also have accession requests from China, Taiwan, and Ecuador, and there are a number of other countries that have signaled their interest in joining the agreement as well. So with respect to the implementation, it seems to be going very well, and our trade with the region, generally speaking, is doing very well.
Merci.
Thank you. In your opinion, how has the implementation benefited Canadian industry, and are there specific industries that benefited significantly from this? Thank you.
Madam Chair, I don't have specifics with respect to individual industries, but what I can tell you is that for a number of countries, we've seen dramatic growth in our exports of beef and pork, for example. We're seeing increased exports of manufactured goods to a number of countries, including Australia. Overall, our trade with our exports to Australia, Japan, New Zealand, and Singapore as a group rose by 9.4% in 2021 over the pre-CPTPP levels. So up over 9% in trade with those key economies in the first 3 years of the agreement. And with respect to Japan in particular, our trade is continuing to increase. I think we were up 16.4% in 2021 over 2020. So the numbers generally are going very, very well. Our industry has been very pleased with it.
Thank you. And this question is for any one of the witnesses. Canada is committed to increasing access to global markets for all Canadian businesses and ensuring Canadian businesses have the ability to compete in global markets. Where do you find Canada's place, or Canadian businesses can be placed in markets such as the Indonesian market that is now being considered a fast-growing market? How can Canadian businesses benefit from that? And in your opinion, it's a huge question. What are the contributing factors that make Indonesia a fast-growing market? Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. It is indeed a large question, and I will try to start answering it. I might turn to my colleagues in the Trade Commissioner Service to add to my answer. Just on what are the factors that make Indonesia an attractive market is, I think it's the size of the market. It's got a very large population, over 250 million people, and a growing population as well. Also, the increased wealth, especially the growing middle class, will create opportunities for sales of agricultural products, of automobiles, of automobile parts into the market. And so really great opportunities for that. A key priority for the government is inclusive trade, to ensure that the benefits of trade accrue to the largest number of people, largest number of businesses and people possible. And so a key priority for us is to ensure that underrepresented groups in trade do benefit from the agreement, both by ensuring there's provisions in the agreement to assist underrepresented groups to take advantage of the benefits of the agreement, and also in promoting the agreement to underrepresented groups in Canada. And so that is a key priority. Maybe I'll ask Mr. Goodinson to speak about the Trade Commissioner Service and its priorities in the region.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Alexander. That was an excellent response on behalf of the Trade Commissioner Service. I don't have a lot to add, except to say that in Indonesia, the Trade Commissioner Service, as elsewhere, works a lot with small and medium-sized exporters to increase their market access and to make business connections for them to increase their sales. I would say that among the priority sectors for Indonesia, the Indonesian market for the TCS in the next fiscal year are sectors as diverse as agri-food, mining, infrastructure, as well as information technology and clean tech, all ones that we've discussed recently. So thank you.
All right, thank you very much to our witnesses for the very valuable information as we begin our study. So thank you again very much. I know we will see you again as we continue with this study. We are now going to go in camera, so members and authorized staff who are participating virtually, please log off to this meeting and use the in-camera Zoom link. So I will suspend for a few minutes till we get that done. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.